Our scheduled speaker today, Assemblywoman Catherine Baker, was called to Sacramento this morning. And so I knew that that could happen. I was warned by her staff that she could be suddenly called away. And I had a backup, and I couldn't have a better backup. Our own Splendorio was scheduled to talk in July about entrepreneurship and a little more. And so Splen graciously offered and agreed to fill in today. Let's give a big hand for Splen.
Yeah, I do.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, so take your shoes off. Take your shoes off. I don't want to get hit. Okay, not going to do it. So don't expect much. Really what we're going to hear from is Brandon Cardwell, who's here. Brandon is the executive director of iGate, which is the incubator hub that all of you should have an interest in and have been funding if you're a taxpayer in the cities of Livermore, Pleasanton, Dublin, and Danville. And so before Brandon gives about 15 minutes, and then I'll fill in the rest of the time. I'll fill in with questions and other things that I know. But for several years, I've been the chair of the board of iGate, and before that, I was secretary. Okay, just one thing on Catherine. A lot of you may know that Catherine worked for a law firm, and technically still does. Not that we expect much out of her, nor do we pay her much at this point. She's got a full-time gig. But I just want you to understand, Catherine is one of the hardest working people I have ever met. When she started that race, and she asked me, "What do you think?" I said, "Catherine, you're going to run against Tim Sprocket. He's a mayor. That's really hard. You're a Republican in a district that's both mostly Democrat." I said, "You're going to have to do it." Because I'm ready. I'm going to work hard. And she, and I know Tim quite well. She kicked the crap out of me. She worked so goddamn hard. I mean, really, she did. Gotta give her credit. She really does a good job for y'all. Brandon.
Thank you very much for having me. So Splend offered to fill in, and then as chairman of the board, immediately delegated that authority to me. So I'll do my best to be brief and interesting today. Usually I can only deliver on one of those. But I see many faces here that I also saw at the council meeting last night going until about 11 o'clock, so I'll try to be as quick as I can. So I thought it'd be prudent to start with a brief timeline for those who aren't as familiar with the organization. So it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but if you look, in 2010, we got what's called an iHub designation from the state of California. The state said, if you're working in innovation, tell us who your partners are, what you want to accomplish, how you plan to operate, and we're going to stamp out these 6 iHub districts, regions across the state of California. So we got together at the City of Livermore with laboratory partners, Sandia and Lawrence Livermore, and said, yeah, we're going to create this industry cluster in energy and transportation. The state loved it. It was heralded as one of the prime examples of these kinds of iHub proposals. So they gave us the designation, and then we immediately said, okay, where's the funding? And they said, no, it's the state of California, so you're going to have to figure it out on your own. So we did, and in 2011, we decided to open an incubator. Soon after we did that, we had another question, which is, where are all the companies? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. 2012, we had a major pivot, which was opening up our technology profile to be beyond energy and transportation focused to tech in general. And I'll share with you what that has meant to the organization. And then in 2014, second major pivot, we moved downtown. So some of you may have seen us relocated to the corner of 2nd Street and South Livermore, right next to the other iconic thing in downtown besides the flagpole, which is Tequila's Taqueria. That's where I spend most of my Tuesdays. And then hopefully my little up and to the right graphic there tells you a little bit of foreshadowing of what's happened to the organization since then. So sorry for the blurry picture, but back in 2011, cell phone cameras weren't what they are today. But this is what our first incubator project looked like. 15,000 square foot warehouse on almost the very last street in the East Bay. Between Masco and Greenville, we tried to pitch to Silicon Valley startups and San Francisco startups and investors, why don't you come on out to the very last city, or last street in the East Bay, and check out our warehouse. Not surprisingly, that didn't go so well, especially when we were focused on the energy and transportation sector. But we're somewhat of a startup in our own right, so we believe in failing fast and failing forward, so we did. And in 2012, after opening up to focus more on tech companies in general, it started to look a little more like this. So this is a company called TerraVion, which is a pretty successful company to date now, one of the 5 alumni companies that I'll share a little bit more about later. But we got 6 companies to come and join us in our big giant warehouse, and all of them are still alive and kicking today. Some are kicking harder than others. Most of them are still here in the Tri-Valley, which was our goal. So that was sort of success point number 1 for us was, okay, we figured out how to get a little closer to what we call product market fit. We're actually building a solution that works for the people to whom we'd like to sell it. So the rest of the alumni companies that we have here, US Radar, Coptra Energy, POC Medicals, they're across a variety of industries, medical device, some spun out technology from the lab, some didn't. All of them, with the exception of TerraVion, are still in the Tri-Valley, and all of them are still going. There's a 6th company that we've been working with for a while that actually Splen's son Dante works for now as a result of an internship we helped to create. It's actually using antimatter for interstellar space travel stuff. And not making that up, you can come see the signs that we have posted around the facility that say caution antimatter in handwriting. It's a little unnerving, but it's okay. So following our experiment with the Long Guard Road facility and realizing that big empty spaces, high bay warehouses that were sort of not proximate to anything, weren't exactly what our target market was looking for in building an entrepreneur community. We came to the belief and understanding that ecosystems are actually what entrepreneurs need and crave. They want to connect to communities of like-minded people. They want to get access to resources that are critical for the early stages of business formation. Mostly they want to be with peers. So this is a quote from Dane Stangler, who runs research for the Kauffman Foundation, which is sort of the preeminent entrepreneur research organization in the country. And this really informs our approach, especially so following that other pivot to moving to downtown. So we knew we had to get out of the warehouse, in the hinterlands and into a place that was going to be attractive to what we call the creative class. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. But those who work in creative industries and focus on problem solving in their everyday life. So, believe me, the move was not quite as simple as this arrow, but we were able to do it. By partnering with the city of Livermore, identifying some underutilized facilities that they had already in the downtown in the form of the old Pac Bell building, it's on that corner of 2nd and South Livermore, we were able to turn this into this. So with a very relatively small amount of funding, we were able to renovate about 3,500 square feet upstairs and another 2,000 square feet downstairs into shared space for entrepreneurs. I hesitate to use the word incubator, although that might be the closest thing to what we are, because we really focus on community development within the space. The space is nice and it's necessary for some of the work that's being done, but it's fundamentally an access point to a much broader network of resources. We're not selling real estate. We're providing connectivity. This is the downstairs space. This is the space currently occupied by a Lawrence Livermore Lab spin-out company called Safe Traces, which is working in food security. They raised a little over $1 million last year and are getting ready to graduate from that facility next month, and they're also staying in the Tri-Valley. So they're employing 4 people right now, as well as some contractors. It's a local entrepreneur who formerly worked at a company called CPAC, which some of you might be aware of, spun out this technology. And so soon we'll have actually the space available to lease. So if any of you know of any tech companies that are looking for about 1,000 square feet of space, send them my way. So the other thing that happened in downtown is this. We realized that by going to a place where people already wanted to be, and then creating a value-added layer on top of that, we could achieve something that was far greater than what we had been able to achieve out of our old space. So 350% growth, that's actually just in 2015. It's more than that since the move in the middle of 2014. But this is very good for everybody, especially for our city partners and lab partners who've been footing the bill for the organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're not in the business of renting out real estate, as I said, but we do need to keep the lights on. So in terms of our cash burn basis, we're now recovering about 70 to 80% of our costs on a monthly basis through our recurring revenue, which is huge compared to where we were even 18 months ago. So we're very proud of that. Just a sampling of our member companies. We're a little bit of a unique animal in terms of the incubator, accelerator kind of space because we don't have a technical focus. We're not just doing biotech. We're not just doing enterprise software. I joke that instead of a vertical focus, we have a horizontal focus because we focus on stage. So if you have an idea and you don't yet have a company formed, or you've got talking to another buddy about starting something up, we're the first stop on the entrepreneur journey. So we work from idea to what we call a seed round stage, which is usually less than $1 million. If you've raised that kind of capital, you should be able to stand on your own 2 feet once you have an out. So just a little recap of what we did in 2015 that's not facility related. We hosted over 30 events serving over 700 local entrepreneurs, things like knowledge sharing, network connectivity with peers, as well as fireside chats with experienced entrepreneurs, trying to create more visibility into the roadmap of what it means to be an entrepreneur, create more enthusiasm around entrepreneurship as a pathway for people. We work with a lot of first-time founders, so they've got great technical expertise, they know what they want to do, but they don't know exactly how to do it. So our programming and network building is a really important aspect of that, as well as helping us to deliver value to our other city partners, as Glenn mentioned, who don't have an iGate, fun, cool physical facility in their geography. They want to tap into some of that magic, and so we host events and other kinds of networking programs to help do that. So just briefly, kind of going forward, what we're looking at for this year, this will look familiar to Splend, because I just pitched this to the board last week. These are some of our long-term goals for the organization. These are not things that we can do entirely on our own, which is why I like to come and talk to people like you as well. We don't have the ability unilaterally to help to create a regional brand that's attractive and open to entrepreneurs. We need people to be evangelists for this region, not just for our organization, but for the other organizations like Innovation Tri-Valley, Innovate Pleasanton, that are helping entrepreneurs to build new companies. So all of you can play that role as a brand ambassador for this region, telling people about what we're doing, but also telling us about what you're seeing. So I'm looking for that engagement, which is why I like to come to these types of meetings. So strategically, how do we want to accomplish some of those things? One of the things we've realized is we certainly need to take that holistic approach. I mentioned the ecosystem before. It can't just be bricks and mortar. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we view these 3 components of linking, launching, and leading. The switch is what we've recently decided to call our downtown location. Previously, everything had just sort of been iGate, but iGate was an organization, iGate was events that we do, iGate was a physical facility. We want to create some distinction. And a declarative, strong name like the switch that pays homage to our building's history as a link in the long-distance line between LA and Oakland has proven to be very attractive to entrepreneurs who are looking for something that's a little bit cooler, sexier, easy to understand. iGate originally stood for Innovation for Green Advanced Transportation Excellence, so you can understand why we divorced ourselves of that as soon as humanly possible. So we're looking to have the space serve as a launching point for all kinds of things. It's companies, but it's also projects, ideas, and relationships. And we run a makerspace on the weekends called Robot Garden, which doesn't have really a commercial angle to it, but it's about getting kids and families interested in 3D printing and CAD design and software development. So we want it to be a community hub for people who are trying to start new things. It needs to be financially self-sustaining, and we're well on a path to doing that for recurring revenue, as I mentioned. And we want to really encourage the member-to-member collaboration and access to resources at the very earliest stages. Linking is this new initiative that we have called Startup Tri-Valley. We've been running a meetup group, so we're familiar with meetups, a way of getting a lot of people together around some kind of affinity. We have almost 400 members of this meetup group. That's how we market our events. We're doing one in Pleasanton, because we are a regional organization, on February 23rd. It's a Law 101 for startups. Come out and learn what stock purchase agreements are, schedule 83B elections, and things like that. So we started this initiative by building a community asset map. We have a visual map that we are constantly updating and crowdsourcing so that we can put startup companies, big tech companies, lawyers, service providers, educational institutions, research institutions, all in one place to visually demonstrate what's happening here in the Tri-Valley that makes it unique. We're not a bedroom community for for the Silicon Valley. We have plenty of homegrown innovation, and we wanted to visually depict that. We also are running an entrepreneur networking series, as I mentioned, and we want to build out our platform to allow for collaboration on the actual platform itself through forums and guest blog posts and what we're calling a gig board instead of a job board. So one of the things we've noticed is our startups in particular may not be ready to hire full-time equivalent employees, but they need to get stuff done. And there are lots of people in the community who have access to the know-how and resources to help them do that, whether it's design, web development, or marketing. In925 is a group that we started last year, and I would say it failed pretty resoundingly, but we're going to take another whack at it this year with a little bit of a tweak. We wanted to create an investor network here in the Tri-Valley. There are lots of angel investors who live up here, very early stage investors, but they're doing all of their deals in other parts of the Bay Area. So for those who want to spend more time mentoring and focusing on companies that are here homegrown in the Tri-Valley, we want to give them an outlet and a mechanism for doing that. But where we failed, I think, was by casting too small of a net, focusing on only investors. We want to bring in successful entrepreneurs, which we describe as people who had at least one successful exit, so an IPO or the company was bought, because the knowledge you gain from that is really essential, and it's a great metric for bringing people in. So toward the end of this year, we're going to take a run at establishing this leadership group to help promote the Tri-Valley startup community and provide mentorship to some of the companies that we're working with. 2016 goals, high level. We want to achieve 80% cost recovery on what we're doing in our facility. I think we can do better than that. We'll have a growth plan put in place by the end of the year. We're going to execute at least 6 meaningful events. There's a reason why I put that descriptor in there. It can't just be about slamming a bunch of people together for beer and pizza. I love that as much as the next person does, but it needs to be something that actually catalyzes new relationships and growth. And we're going to build out our platform on Startup Tri-Valley and start work, I think, on the N925. Ways you can help. We're always looking for awareness, referrals. You know somebody who's thinking about starting a project, send them our way. If we can't help them, if we're not a good fit, we probably know somebody who can. That's really the business that we're in. We're always looking for prospective mentors for our companies. So if you know some successful entrepreneurs and business people, Splend's provided a number of strong referrals. I'm sure you all have networks that can be useful in that way as well. We find the mentors really get a lot out of it also. There's a certain juice involved in being a startup that you can't really replace. And then help us to raise awareness and promote our events. We don't charge for these events, so they're really community oriented, and the value of them goes up exponentially with the number of people who attend. That's it. Thank you.
This was very interesting, and I wonder, do you have an average age and gender demographic?
The gender demographic is overwhelmingly male, and it is something that we're aware of. In fact, when we hired our current community manager, one of the reasons I hired her was the first thing she said when she came in is, "Why are there only men on your website?" And I said, "Okay, that's a good point, but it's because there are almost only men in our community." So again, raising awareness for those who are looking for a community to plug into. We're taking what comes our way, but I think it's something that we need to be aware of. On the age side, it tends to be mid-30s to early 40s, I'd say, is about the average age. Most of them have families. It's very representative of the community as a whole. Yeah, so Splend just brought up, one of our member companies is an education technology company called Notomy, Knowledge Academy is what it stands for. And actually, Assemblymember Baker's been really involved with what they've been doing. They have a Girls Who Code program that's really focused on software development, and they've been doing some outreach into underrepresented groups by providing free classes to kids who are interested but otherwise wouldn't be able to afford that. So as far as the community development stuff is concerned.
Do you have contact information for?
I do, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yes.
How many startup companies have you have begun in the Tri-Valley because of this, and how many have ended up here in Livermore?
That's a tough thing to answer. So we have supported about 30 companies since we got started. How many of them found it as a result of us is a little bit tougher than how many have we helped. So we've graduated 5 companies, right, who I think would tell you we've had a marked impact on their trajectory. As far as attraction, we mostly serve homegrown entrepreneurs who are from here, but we do have some founders from Oakland, some actually from Texas, Australia, Seattle, so there have been a number of folks who actually come here as a result of this.
Is your organization unique, or do other communities have similar organizations like a Switch?
Of course, I like to think that we're unique. I think there are other organizations that have similar objectives as we do. One of the things that you see a lot when you look across the country, where there are incubators spread far and wide, 97% of them are affiliated with a university or a foundation. So most of them get a heavy influx of cash from a well-funded partner, and they put on programs or lease facilities out. And most of the research actually shows that that doesn't have much of an impact on the companies that go through them. They tend to be real estate plays. So we really focus on the network building piece, because our long-term goal is to build an innovation community here, not to run more and better facilities. That might be part of that. But the network effect of building relationships between people, that has exponential growth potential, and facility, space, and events does not. So we really focus on the member-to-member collaboration.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the relationship, your relationship with the national labs,
Sure.
and the degree to which you really have a symbiosis there.
Yeah, so it's timely. I met this morning with 2 of our national lab partners from the industrial partnerships space, and a venture capital firm called Wasabi Ventures, which focuses on tech transfer. So we were just talking about some of this. We're not really involved in the commercialization process. We don't try to find technology and marry it with entrepreneurs or advise on licensing. We are the recipient of that output. So Rich Rankin, who runs the Industrial Partnerships Office for Lawrence Livermore, refers to the ecosystem as a catcher's mitt, because the things that the labs are able to pitch out need to be received somewhere. So we're part of that catcher's mitt. We're co-founded by the national labs, and they continue to be funding partners in what we do. But we have focused more on programmatic kinds of things like entrepreneur education for lab researchers and scientists through a program called LabCorp that we ran last spring and we'll run again this fall. And then we've helped about 5, 6 companies that have a direct tie back to the national labs spin out and raise capital, or are in the process of building business plans and go-to-market strategies. Commercialization of lab technologies is hard. And that's the short version of the story. It's very early stage technology. Most of it wasn't meant for a commercial application, so you're sort of looking for that. And then the most important thing is nobody invests in technology or buys technology, they buy solutions. So we focus on that a lot. What team's going to drive it, how does it fit into an existing process, and who actually wants to buy the thing, because that's what matters at the end of the day. Yeah, I'm afraid I have to go, but Swan knows how to get a hold of me, and he can answer questions, so if there's any follow-up, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
So I'm happy to answer any other questions, but so I've been involved since the beginning on the board and through different transformations, and we were like a startup, and we don't think we're at the end game either. We've tried different things, and we'll continue to try different things until we create what we want to create, which is a community to allow folks that step back. You could go through Silicon Valley, and probably every other block there's going to be some coffee shop where people are doing this, all the time. They're just talking to each other and forming companies. What our research shows is that we have a lot of very inventive, creative people in the Tri-Valley, but they don't have the same, it's not as simple as coffee shops. They don't have the same network. We know the folks who are here. We know that the people that want to build a company or have an idea, but they've never valid. We know that the investors are here, but their focus was entirely Silicon Valley or San Francisco. And the third piece of that, surprisingly, is The executives. Brandon mentioned that the solutions are what sell. There's two things. There's a solution and there's management. Investors invest in management. They want talented people who know how to execute whatever the solution is. And we know those people are here too. They live, they're wealthier, they live in South Livermore, or they live in Ruby Hill, or they live in Blackhawk, or they live in Alamo. We know they're here. And they're also, just like all of you who have commuted to the South Bay or San Francisco, they're also, all those folks are equally frustrated. Don't want to do that. So that's what we're trying to capture. And the cities and the labs believe in that there is, as part of an economic development strategy, to capture all three of those groups and get them to build something here. We're not naive enough to think that we're going to become Silicon Valley, but we can become something. We can develop and innovate here and create jobs for our kids or other people that might want to come here and find well-paying jobs. That's if I can encapsulate what our purpose and goal is, that's it. And there isn't anyone else doing that here. John?
Have you asked Brandon to join Rotary yet?
So Robert's left. So if I was to speak for Mark, he is far too valuable for us. We want him at iGate. I know Mark wants him back at the city. Brandon is a very talented person. I know there's going to be a day when we're going to lose him. But he's gone he's younger, but he's that millennial. He's that person that we see. I invite all of you to come and visit us and take just walk around. It's not to take that long to take a tour, trust me. But we do have a tap with Altamont beer. So I'll buy you a beer there. But it's very important, John, that someone like, I could ask him, but the point is, he's really important to this whole culture we're trying to develop. And so he'll be hard to replace. We know he will at some point because Mark wants him back. Work with the city. He's a city employee. Hope you guys can talk to something, guys, something exciting about things that are happening right under your nose. You may walk by that building and wonder what the heck is iGate. Go inside if you want. Sorry.
Where does all the funding account for the $9 million?
9 million or 9,000. That's per month.
Yeah.
That's rent from the companies. And we also get funding from the labs and from the cities. And the city of Livermore has been the most generous. They own the facility. We don't pay rent. But the other cities pay about 25 grand per. The labs, I think it's 25 each, I can't remember. But that covers overhead and other things that we have to pay. We haven't had to dip into the city money for about a year now, so we still have it. But it's we're trying to figure out what to do. Like I said, we want to evangelize our community, and so to bring these people in who want us. There's a lot of innovation, the sense of entrepreneurship that we know is around here, and we want to tap into that. We want to give them an outlet, a place where they can come and talk and meet other folks that want to do the exact same, other than going to a coffee shop and Hopi, something like that. Yes, Jen.
So what about the problem? What about the issue, though, in Livermore, but also in the greater valley, the 925, of lack of affordable housing and lack of affordable office space for the people that are spun out of the switch?
Good question, Jen. In terms of affordability, we don't like to say affordability. I also belong to the Innovation Tri-Valley Board, and I head up its Housing Infrastructure and Transportation Committee. We like to say workforce housing. Affordable has a connotation amongst all of you that it's under people that need some sort of subsidy. That isn't what we're talking about. It's workforce. It's just not 20 and 30-year-olds. It's people that work for Tim, right? What do you pay, Tim? What's the starting salary at your place?
As low as possible.
Yeah. So, and Mike, what do you pay your starting patrolman?
Probably $70,000.
And can they afford to buy a house in Livermore? Right. So I know that was last night, I said some things, a lot of you hopefully did, but part of it is, we want those kind of people to live in our community, right? We don't, if they're living here because maybe mom and dad is subsidizing them, right? So part of it, you're right, Jen, that's extremely important, but we've got these folks who are starting out, they have an idea, maybe they have a full-time job, maybe it's only paying 60 grand a year, but they have this dream, they're gonna build this company out of, something. And we want them to stay here. We don't want them to live with mom and dad or over the hill. So that's part of, that's not necessarily part of IGA, but it is part of Innovation Crab Valley. That's a very important point. In terms of the office rents and things like that, yeah, it's difficult. That's not abnormally high, Jen. If you're comparing it to San Francisco and Silicon Valley, we're a bargain here. Now, do we have the right kind of space necessarily? No, we do not. We don't have, our economy is vastly, and I'm sorry to go off track here. Our economy is vastly changing. The kind of space that we'll want, go drive through Hacienda, all those one-story buildings, obsolete, not needed. You need office space. And I'm not saying it has to be 4 stories, 2-story, 3-story. That's what our economy is generating now. So yeah, we don't have that. We need to build that. But it's kind of tough to tell a landlord to tear down a building on the hope that you're going to have a bunch of, because that's where we're going with our economy. And we have to recognize that. Sorry, I got off track. Yes.
I get the impression that the state really started this by putting these different areas around and saying, you want this many of whatever, and then they have you get approved. Is that what you said? You had to be approved?
Yeah, we were once the 6 innovation hubs that the state basically gave their blessing to, and then said, we've blessed you, go out and do it.
Okay, what did you get?
No money.
What did you get, since you didn't get any money, what did you get for that blessing?
We called ourselves an iHub. That was, I think that was the Terminator, the Governor, that was one initiative, is that go out there and innovate. When bad time, remember it was 2011, 2010. We appreciate it, but we liked it. It was good to say that. But now, when Marshawn and Jerry Thorne and Dave Halbert go to Washington, they talk about us pretty much all the time because that's what they want to hear. They want to hear about something. Last question.
If you look at the other 6, or the other 5 areas, your analogs, are they doing as well, or more poorly, or better?
Oh, they're done. They're gone.
Thank you.
Oh,
I think there's one, and that's not doing as well. And they were focused on a specific industry, like we were. And I realized it right away. Because I knew where the venture money was coming in. It wasn't in transportation. It wasn't there. Everybody wanted to do an app. That's what they wanted. So, anyway, thank you.
He actually told me, hey, you gotta go now. Because you want one of these. Oh, well, there you go. All right.